Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today we have another incredible guest joining us. If you've ever felt the deep desire to become a mother but found yourself on a winding and sometimes challenging journey, this episode is for you. Our guest today is Spencer Brassard, the brilliant mind and compassionate heart behind the book Fertile Ground, a mind-body approach to getting pregnant without it taking over your life. Spencer is not only an author, but also a certified life coach and the host of a top-rated podcast, Fertile Ground, which has touched the lives of thousands of women around the world. In today's episode, we'll dive into Spencer's own 8-year fertility journey, explore the mind-body connection that she champions, and discover how she helps women embrace their fertility journey with compassion, patience, and trust. Whether you're currently on the trying to conceive journey, know someone who is, or are simply curious about the power of mind-body connection, this conversation is sure to enlighten and inspire you. So without further ado, let's welcome Spencer. Welcome, Spencer.
Thank you so much for having me. What an introduction. You just made me filled with gratitude hearing that. Loved it.
Well,
Thank you.
You are amazing. And I'm so excited to share with everyone about your book because it's actually funny. Yesterday I was talking to my husband and I said, yeah, tomorrow I have a recording, and he's like, oh, what is it about? And I was telling him, and we were like driving, and he like stops, like, wait, the mind body connection between fertility, like I'm really actually interested in that too. So I just sometimes he just ignores when I'm talking, but that really caught his attention. But anyway, to start each episode, before we get into that, we have our wine, and wit of the week segment. That is where we share a favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that's been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So Spencer, what is your WINE of the week?
WINE. You know what? It's summer here in Canada, and that's like a big deal. There's a heat wave, and that is very rare. So I got to say, a beautiful bottle of rosé would be,
Perfect.
Whispering Angel. I think that one I think Beyonce owns that one. That one's
Whispering Angel is very good. I love that. And what is your WHINE of the week?
You know what? I'd say I just attended my cousin's funeral yesterday. Not to be a downer, but it was really difficult. So grief is a crazy emotion.
Yeah,
so that's it for me.
So sorry. How about what is your win of the week, to go on a positive note?
That I attended my cousin's funeral and I survived. That I made it through, and I saw my aunt and uncle make it through, and I saw her sisters make it through. And it's, I think us humans, we're like, are we going to get through this? And then we do, and we're like, okay, I survived. I didn't die. That experience, I made it through it, and so. That was a win, to make it through it and to come out on the other side and to have and carry, ironically, so much grief, but also so much love at the same time. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Funerals always bring, the total opposite ends of emotions, with the sadness being so sad, but then you are seeing all these people and the love and that connection, which sadly you don't want to feel there, but I mean, you need it the most there, but you wish it was somewhere else that you were feeling it, I guess.
Exactly.
I'm very proud of you for getting through that.
Thank
amazing.
You.
I'm happy you did. I always like to ask my guests, what is one significant challenge you've successfully navigated shaping your journey to where you are today? And what is one accomplishment you're most proud of?
Well, speaking of this topic, the resilience that I gained through my fertility journey, and the kind of whisper I listened to that said, this is not just about trying to find out what's wrong with you, but actually expanding your capacity to listen to yourself despite the world telling you that something's wrong. And so I am most proud of being able to listen to myself over all of that noise. And I have a beautiful relationship with myself and 2 babies to show for it. So
that's amazing. That's
pretty
awesome.
Remarkable.
Yes. And again, so excited to learn more about that.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
But the Running Wine Mom, we start with a little fitness. What is your favorite way to stay active?
I'm going to go with that summer theme and just say, I love to go for just walks outside right now. Just being able to the bare minimum at this point. With 2 little kids, I love going for a walk. I actually feel high when I go for walks. Just
Yeah.
nature just does something to the human spirit. It's remarkable.
It
Crazy.
solves all your problems.
It does. Like mind, body, soul. It's wild.
And how does maintaining your fitness routine contribute to both your motivation and your understanding of the relationship between mental health and physical health?
I think it's one of the ways that we can get out of our heads and come back to our bodies.
Yeah.
And that is incredibly powerful, particularly when it comes to the mind and body connection, right? Because we are a society, the culture that lives primarily from the neck up. We're ruminating, we're overthinking, we're over planning, we're in the future or we're in the past. We're never in the presence of our bodies. And so I think when we move our bodies, when we make that conscious decision, it is one of the easiest and the fastest ways to notice the presence and the breath within our bodies. So yeah, I think it's a great way to establish a stronger mind-body connection.
And let's now get into a little bit of parenthood. Can you tell us about your family?
Yeah, I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old boy, and they are the stereotypical boys. They wrestle. They were, they're rambunctious. But they love each other, and they get along brilliantly, which I'm very happy to say. And I'm also very much in love with my husband.
Aww.
We're just riding the wave of like pure joy and bliss at this point in my life. So I'm just full
awesome.
of gratitude. When it comes to my family life, it's 10 out of 10 right now.
Oh, so that's great.
I love
it. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So we're like of in the same stage.
Yeah. So, it's busy, but it's great.
I know. I was just thinking about it the other day, and I was just kind of like watching them like run around, and I was like, this is the best. Like, I just feel like can it get any better than this? Hopefully, but like, this is really just they're not like involved in every activity. They're not like, teenagers but they're coming into their personality, and they love you so much. Like, it's just really is the best.
Yeah, you described it exactly how I feel. So yeah, ditto.
So what were you least prepared for in parenthood?
The transition from 0 to 1. Unfortunately for me, it happened. I guess it would be pretty similar to you, but it happened to us. Becoming first-time parents in a pandemic was incredibly challenging and isolating and fearful and anxiety-inducing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that becoming a parent would change so much. Like, it was such a dream of mine that, 1 to 2 was a breeze for me, really. Like, it hardly made a difference. 0 to 1 was like, what? I have to change everything about my life for this human? So that was, I didn't expect it. I think parenthood, personally, is romanticized. I think we think it's all just going to come natural, and we're going to know exactly what to do, and it's just going to be blissful postpartum where you just sit and breastfeed your baby. And then it's like, they don't talk about breastfeeding challenges. They don't talk about the sleepless nights. Everyone just talks about the Instagram reel of how beautiful every moment is. And I think those first few months when you become a first-time parent, I wish I would have known, I wish I would have not been sold such a romantic version of motherhood, so that I could just not have such insane high expectations of what it was going to be like.
Yeah, I totally relate to that, because so many, we had 2 under 2, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be crazy. That 1 to 2 is wild. I'm like, if it's worse than 0 to 1, like, there's going to be a major problem. And like you just said, 1 to 2 is like, whatever, we got this. But 0 to 1, I'm like, I can't. How are mothers mothering? How are people surviving out there?
Exactly.
Like, I don't even know, what is this? Like, what did I sign up for?
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree. I was like, wait, and I was one of the last ones to have kids. Like, you guys didn't like mention all of this
You know what?
stuff.
And I think that's so sad. And it's so fascinating, because I think you and I, we were just talking about how wonderful it is to have 2 little kids, but once you get past that, first few months, it does
Right.
get so much easier.
Mhm.
But those first few months, it's like you don't know who you are anymore. You don't know who this human is you're just building this new relationship. You and your partner's relationship has completely changed. And so I think it's just managing the expectations of what those first few months are
Yeah.
what to expect. I think would help prepare parents so much more. And I wish moms talked about the realities of postpartum.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough too, I think that I know that the research shows that people who struggle to conceive have a much higher chance of postpartum anxiety and depression. And I think that's the case because you have this thing that you wanted so
Mhm.
bad, and then you get it and it's fucking hard. Sorry, can I swear?
Oh yeah, you can. You can.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you get it and it is so hard and you're like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Oh my God, I have so much shame. This is why this is I should be feeling gratitude at every moment of the day. Why am I anxious? Why am I tired? Why am I, sometimes wishing I had my old life back? But those are such very normal, natural feelings required of this transition into motherhood.
Mhm.
And yeah, I wish I would have been told that a little bit more. But we
Yeah.
are right now, right?
Yeah. We made it through.
We
Made it
survived.
through.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you think your parenting style is?
That's such a great question. I've never thought of it. I think I'm out of my husband and I am more of the disciplinarian, but I also think I'm pretty laid back. I think I was really fortunate to have learned that skill of letting go of all that perfectionism on my fertility journey and really embracing the emotions of these small beings who have no ability to regulate their
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah.
So I think I'm able to offer a lot more compassion and grace for them and to hold space for being imperfect and not always being the perfect kid.
Mhm.
So I think I'm definitely a bit of the more disciplinarian, just in more so when it comes to I really like manners. Like I really like please and thank you, but I also really like to treat them with I want them to know I trust them. Like do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like I'm not a fear monger. My mom was a bit of that. Like she was always like, don't do that, you're gonna fall. Don't do that, you're gonna. And I'm more of like, you know what? If they fall, they will learn not to do that again.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yes.
So there are certain things definitely that I like to see in my kids,
Yeah.
but I definitely want to give them space to be who they are, which is one of the biggest gifts I learned on my fertility
Yeah.
journey. Because they came here, they're not an extension of me. They're
Right.
their own
You're
selves,
which is hard.
right?
Like separate that. So like you're
Mm-hmm.
mine, but like you're yours as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I just finished the book. Actually, I was thinking when you were saying that you liked, if they fall, they'll figure it out. I just
Mm-hmm.
finished the book, The Anxious Generation, and it talked a lot about
Okay.
how like parents are very overbearing, and then their kids don't learn the skills. Like you need to
Exactly.
learn the skills. If you fall off of that tree, okay, well, if you want to do it again, you have to figure out you have to do it a differerent way. You're not going to do it the
Exactly.
same way.
Exactly.
And learning those skills, just building resilience. I thought it was really interesting because I'm the same way. Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't say like, not that we don't say it, but like be careful. We try to stay away from be
For
careful. Don't do
sure.
that.
I get
Say
that.
like if you step there, you might fall. So be careful. So be aware of your surroundings. But whatever.
Exactly.
And last thing, what is one piece of advice that you would give to other parents?
Let them be imperfect. Let them embarrass you. Let them fall. Let them feel pain. Let them cry. Let
Love
them be
that. That's
imperfect.
great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
All right, so now let's get into the main event. So you are a fertility coach and a life coach. How tell us about that? Tell us about you. Tell us about how you got into that,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna get into your book.
Yeah, so I was struggling to conceive for a long time, a few years at this point, and I had done all of the physical stuff that culture tells you to do, right? Diet, take this medication, take these vitamins, like incredibly clean lifestyle, really, really kind of planned out your everyday.
Yeah.
Don't stay up late, don't drink coffee, don't drink alcohol. And so I realized that I was a shell of who I was at the end of this shift of changing my entire life to try and get pregnant. Because, we again are taught that mothers, they make sacrifices. And I had this belief that the more I sacrifice, the more worthy I'll be of my baby, which was interesting to reflect on that afterwards, after doing everything I possibly could from a physical perspective. I realized I'm not who I am anymore. I'm a shell of who I used to be. And that can't be good for fertility. I'm
Mm-mm.
suffering drastically. Although I'm making all of these physical changes and I'm doing everything quote unquote right. Why am I suffering? Why am I so hard on myself? Why am I trying to achieve this goal of perfection that I keep missing the mark on? And so I've always had an interest in psychology, and I had hired a life coach of my own and just felt really inspired by the experience to know that, okay, well, nothing has to change outside of us in order for me to feel better, in order for me to like myself more. That's fascinating that nothing has to change in order for me to be okay. So I decided to become a life coach myself, and I signed up with Martha Beck, who was Oprah's life coach, and she emphasized the power of the mind and body connection. And I was like, oh my God, something inside of me lit up. And in fact, I talk about it in this book in my new book, Fertile Ground, where she is a Harvard graduate, right? So she's loves evidence. She loves science. She loves logic. She's an academic, at heart, but she's also very spiritual. And so she guided us on a meditation. And in this meditation, I was really struggling with what kind of a coach I was going to be. And I thought, I haven't gotten pregnant yet. I can't be a fertility coach, right? Like this, I just had knocked that one out really quick. But then in this meditation, I closed my eyes and I felt and saw all of these orbs of light. And it was like thousands, if not millions of them. And I knew that these were the spirits of babies who were
Oh my
wanting to
gosh.
come in, right?
Ooh, got
And
chills.
I was just, and that's what happened to me. It was just like, chills all over my body, tears streaming down my face. And I couldn't deny that that was what I was here to do. So I
Mhm.
became a fertility coach after I graduated with my certification in life coaching. And I was like, you know what? I'm not pregnant yet, but I do know that I'm not suffering anymore. I do know that I'm genuinely very at peace and very happy in my life. In fact, happier than I've ever been. So why don't I just show women that you don't have to suffer on the journey? And so I started with one client and then two clients and then three clients. And then slowly but surely, a lot of them were getting pregnant.
Ah,
And I was like, holy shit, this actually works.
right.
And it was beautiful because I felt so empowered to not allow my worth to be determined by getting pregnant. It was like, the worst quality I thought about me, which was not getting pregnant, actually ended up being my best, because I think it's what helped people to trust me and knowing what I
Mhm.
was talking about with all of my firsthand experience. I mean, I practically had a fertility degree at this point with how much I had been through, right? And how
Yeah.
much I understood of this process, both emotionally and physically. So shortly after that, it had to have been only a year and a half of that. I went through IVF finally, and I got pregnant but miscarried, which was horrible. The
Mm.
grief was immense. And then a few months after that, again, still like really living and loving my life, I did a frozen embryo transfer and it didn't work. And I was like, what is happening? But it was a really powerful moment where I was like, I am not going to, if I could I can make this failed transfer mean that I'm fucked.
Mhm.
Or I could say, this is not physical evidence. This is not evidence for all of the changes I feel inside. Maybe time hasn't caught up yet. right? Maybe the physical world hasn't caught up to everything that I've changed. And so I continue to live my life. I continue to love my life. I continue to believe that this baby would eventually come.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 months after that, I got pregnant naturally with my
Wow.
4-year-old.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And it was just like, what? It was so wild to have experienced this reality internally, even though the physical world hadn't caught up yet. Right. And so, in a
Mm-hmm.
way, from a mind and body perspective, even though I had so much physical evidence that
Mm-hmm.
my body was broken, that it wasn't working, my mind and my body were still working together to feel regulated and at peace, despite what was happening externally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very interesting approach to take to life. And it may be initially, it can appear to be very difficult, despite having so much evidence that, and it can feel irresponsible or naive to not want to follow that evidence. But I had reached kind of that rock bottom point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't look at everything that's wrong. I got to focus on what's right.
Right. So how did you figure out and create the the connection of the mind body to the fertility? Like how did you, what you explained, obviously you kind of
Yeah.
figured that out, but like
Mhm.
how did you like write it on paper of this is how you can do it?
Yeah, well, I think what we have to understand from a physiological perspective is that the mind conjures up all of our thoughts, right? It's where a lot of the ego lives. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, we live in a culture where the mind is primarily the leader. And I believe that, I forget the direct quote, but it's the mind is a horrible leader and a great servant. And so if we can live primarily more so in our bodies and our hearts and our spirits, which is really just saying if we can live more so in the present moment, then our minds can help direct us from that standpoint. So it's like right now, the mind is first, but if the mind could be second, I think that's very, very powerful.
Hmm.
And so how did I do that? A lot of it was journaling. Like I'm a huge journaler, like you said, how do you write it down? Pen to paper, right? And it was just like, I think the most important relationship we have is with ourselves. And I
Hmm.
don't think we take much time to really get to know ourselves, to know what we need, to know what we want, to know what we're craving. We just kind of roll with the punches, do what everyone else is doing, living on autopilot. And that's kind of where we're wondering why our life is feeling lifeless, is because we're not consulting with ourselves. We're not listening to ourselves and establishing that trust. And so it takes a time to sit with yourself and
Yeah.
go pen to paper and ask, what do I need? What am I craving? What is right about my world right now in my life?
Yeah.
And from that perspective, we are actually working from something a little bit deeper than our minds. Like we're working from our soul or our spirit or our heart, whatever, feels more appropriate to you. And then that is what's guiding the mind. And the body can feel this new energy. The body feels regulated with this new energy. If we live primarily just from the mind, we're dysregulated. We are
Yeah.
so dysregulated from a nervous system perspective because the mind is going a million miles a minute in 5,000 different directions, spitting out worst case scenarios. And it's so much of it is not true, right? Just because we have a thought doesn't mean it's true. And so if we get really intentional and really conscious on where we want our minds to kind of land, that's where the body feels really regulated. And from a nervous system perspective, fertility thrives in rest or digest, right? In the parasympathetic nervous system, where our hormones are feeling regulated. There's not too much cortisol. We're releasing endorphins like dopamine and serotonin that make us feel happy and in our lives and safe. Like, nervous system regulation, it's what makes us feel safe. And,
Hmm.
another word for the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as rest and digest, is feed and breathe, because we become more lubricated when we are in a rested state, when we're not feeling like there is a threat. And I
Right.
just want to offer people, like, listening to this, if you feel like there's a threat, that's like very normal based on our conditioning, based on our upbringing, to feel like something is wrong. When you go on Google, it definitely feels like something
Yeah.
is wrong,
Yeah.
which is why we need to consult with ourselves to
Yeah.
help our bodies become regulated from a nervous system standpoint. And that's what really, I think, affects fertility.
Yeah, and it's as you're saying this, I was thinking I saw something yesterday about a documentary with I think Joe Dispenza about the healing of all of these different um, like cancer. Like people would go to him and he heals them in
Right.
X amount of time. And after that, I was just thinking like we really don't spend enough time with ourselves, even though we're with ourselves every day. How
So
often do we
true.
actually check in with ourselves? We're just, like you said, kind of in autopilot, just going, going, going. And like, I have to do this next, I have to do that next. And then you're like,
Exactly.
wait, what? The stress in my body, where is this coming from? And that can just build and build and cause other ailments essentially, which is scary to kind of think about. But sitting with ourselves is
It's
something people don't do enough. And it's so
it's
simple.
not, but to offer, people and myself and you compassion for maybe not sitting with ourselves all the time, it can be really uncomfortable,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
emotions rise up to the surface that maybe you've been suppressing for some time. And that's okay. At
Mhm.
worst, what an emotion is uncomfortable,
Yes.
right? So
Very.
it's just important for us to know that.
So let's talk about your book. So your book, Fertile Ground, A Mind-Body Approach to Getting Pregnant Without It Taking Over Your Life. Tell us how you decided to write it. Let our listeners know what it's about and how it can
Yeah.
benefit them.
Yes. Oh my God, I love this book. So I decided to write it. Was it last January 2023? And I went for coffee. My husband and I have this really cool monthly date. It's called Best Life Planning. And we just go get together once a month. I mean, you know how crazy it is with two kids to get some
Mhm.
time to yourself with your partner. And I was like, I need to write this book. Like I know everything I need to know to write the book. And I think that's people's primarily like their biggest holdup when they're wanting to write is, I need to know more. I need to learn more. I need to read it more. I do not need to learn more
You're
about
there.
fertility. I think my second child just had turned a year, and I was like, you know what, it's time. It's all there. I want to write it. I want to record it. So I went to Hawaii for a week and I wrote half the book. And then I
Wow.
wrote the second half a few months, throughout a couple months after that from home. And it is my third baby in the sense of how much love and devotion I put into it. But what I think is really unique about it is each chapter is a message from fertility, because I think when we think fertility, we think physical, we think numbers, we think statistics, you know, we think, I think we're really trained to view our bodies from a physical perspective. And so to think that the essence and the energy of fertility, to imagine her as a person, illuminates the humanity and the compassion that I think fertility actually has the potential to offer us. It's not this horrible thing that you don't have or this horrible thing that you're struggling with. I think that if we can shift our perspective of what fertility actually is, it makes it feel a lot more receivable, a lot more um, digestible, and it feels less out of reach, right? So it's really a journey, from chapter 1 to chapter 9. There are 9 chapters of the book, like just like there are 9 months in pregnancy. But it's a journey of where you kind of begin, which is, chapter 1 is there is another way, meaning, you don't just have to choose that cultural approach to fertility, which is achieving and striving for perfection, which, by the way, you will never find because perfection is impossible. But also, and then once you realize that there is another way, you kind of start to thaw out your emotions. You just kind of start to realize, oh my God, I've been carrying and holding a lot on this journey, and I've been feeling a lot of pressure to make it happen. And you kind of start to thaw that out. And as you're reading, the feedback I've been getting from women is just like, this is an experience from start to finish as I'm reading, and I can feel my body going on an experience of thawing out, of coming back to life, of waking up. out of the incessant noise that my head has been offering me. And, it talks about how to let go of perfectionism, how to actually not be afraid of pain. I think a lot of us we think pain is bad. We label pain as bad. And I actually think pain, if we are not willing to feel pain, we can't feel pleasure, because the heart is the birthplace of both pain and pleasure. So it's this willingness to experience the full spectrum of life, and to not, and to know that you don't have to be in full control of everything in order to be safe and okay, and in order for you to get pregnant. It goes through this journey of slowing down, of embracing uncertainty, of letting go of social pressure, and of surrendering, and what that even means on the journey, right? I think a lot of people talk about, oh, well, there's so many stories of people who were trying, and then they dropped it and then they got pregnant. Well, how do you do that without feeling the need to adopt if you don't,
Right.
if that's not in your path? So I think there's a lot of words that you use, like knowing your worth, or surrender, or letting go. And it's just like, how to do that. The book tells you exactly how. And it's a collection. There's a lot of my clients' stories in there, which makes it feel like real life, right? It makes it
Yeah.
feel a lot more relatable. And it really makes you feel like you could actually do this, which is really nice to know.
Yeah. Yes, it's such that I love that you included, testimonials from clients, because I do
Mhm.
think that's really important, because someone could sit and tell you how to do all these things, but then you're like, does it really work? I don't know. Maybe. It sounds like then
Exactly.
you like get that little puzzle piece and you're like, okay, it did work for these people, so it has to work, and hopefully for everyone, hopefully it works for
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
So there's a few things, in the book that you mentioned, especially about like slowing down to speed up. How can you apply that to your fertility journey?
Yeah, I think this is a really great movement from what we were talking about when spending time with ourselves. It's like we are always just rushing to the next thing, because we think
Hmm.
the more I do, the more I'll increase my chances, right? In anything in life, the more I do in my work, the more money I'll make. The more I do, around the house, the better my kids will be. But then we're never in our lives. We're
Hmm.
never with ourselves. We're always in doing, we're always in our heads, and we're always in this thought and belief that my productivity equals my worth. And I think the concept of slowing down, it sounds wonderful, but you kind of need to understand the science of it. And I talk about it inside of the book. Like, why does slowing down improve fertility? What does it do for you, not only from a physiological perspective, but from a mental perspective? And so I think that what slowing down does is it gives you space to realize that, first of all, how you are feeling, and to feel that and actually process that without judgment, right? And also, it gives you distance between you and your thoughts. So when we are racing, we take our thoughts as facts. We're like, oh, I have a thought, then it must be true. I got to run with it. But when we slow down and we go pen to paper, or we enter into a mindfulness meditation, you actually realize that your mind's pulling you in 1,000 different directions, but you don't yet know that until you slow down. So then you're a servant to your mind, you know, and it's this ability, really what it is it's mindfulness, which is slowing down. Is it's just, okay, I'm having this inkling, okay, I'm having this thought again, that the more I do, the more I'll increase my chances. But if I sit down right now for 15 minutes and I grab a pen and I grab paper, and maybe I make it a really nice moment, or maybe not, but I could light a candle if I wanted, could do this in the bath, I could make it really beautiful, and just get to know myself and how I'm feeling. But this particular second part that I'm about to say is probably the most important, is to allow yourself to be where you are without judgment. Slowing down helps you to meet yourself where you're at. And so many of my clients think, I'll only meet myself when I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'll only fully accept who I am and where I'm at when I'm like flying high on positivity. And I'm going to reject myself at any scent of negativity.
Right.
And we miss such an enormous chance for growth, for transformation, and for peace when we let ourselves be where we're at and feel how we feel without judgment, which is, ultimately the essence of compassion. But it's like an alchemy that occurs within the mind and body when you meet yourself where you're at, and when you say, you can feel how you feel, and I'll still love you. I'll still accept you. And it's almost like you have to see yourself as this third person, which is interesting because we kind of talk to ourselves in that way, almost as if we are not our minds and we are not our bodies and we are something deeper, right?
Yep.
And I think that approach to life will get you very far in all categories of your life, to give yourself that space to just, hey, I'm having a shit day. I can't get it together. I don't want to do anything. I want to lay in my bed. I want to do nothing. I want to, cut out all the noise. I want to turn on Netflix and I'm out. And it's like, can you let yourself have that? And if not, why not? And experiment and play with what it would be like to let yourself be a human.
Like, I feel like you're speaking directly to me. It's like rest is so difficult for me. It's like, like when the kids, for like nap time, for example, it's like the kids are napping at the same time, which is great. And then I'm like, all right, I need to do this at nap time, and I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I need to get this done. And then like sometimes I'm like, just sit and watch a show. And why? Then you feel guilty about it. Which is just such an ongoing thing for I feel like moms, especially, with it's hard to do.
Yeah, it is, and it's difficult. But I think what we can build with time is a level of discernment and knowing, you know what, I actually do got to get some shit done. But also, you know what, I don't have the capacity to do a fucking thing right now, so I'm just gonna sit and meet myself where I'm at. Like I think it's so fascinating because I think the biggest fear we have is if I let myself rest, I'm going to disintegrate on my couch and turn into a total slob, and I'm never going to do anything again in my entire life. But doing this work over time builds this immense sense of self-trust where you're like, I actually got to get some stuff done even though I'm tired. But also, we'd be surprised to know how just laying down for 15 minutes is can be like a game changer.
Yes.
When it comes to moving through your life, like a power up. I don't know. My son is into Mario Brothers right now. And so he's talking about how mushrooms are a power up.
Yes.
And that's what like laying down for 15 minutes is, we think rest needs to be like this long nap and I have to go on a spa day. And it's like, no, rest can be a walk around the block or lay down on the couch. So lowering the expectations of what rest actually looks like, that can make a huge difference, is powerful.
Yeah, love that. So infertility, one of the big things is that women have a lot of uncertainty in fertility, especially if you've been struggling for a while. So what advice would you have for women struggling with that, how to accept the uncertainty to help them have a better experience maybe with themselves?
Yeah, it's the uncertainty is the most difficult part of the fertility journey. And I think I had this perfectionist fantasy that once I got pregnant, I would have no more uncertainty ever again in my life. But then I got pregnant and it was just like more uncertainty. So it's dismantling this fantasy that pregnancy ensures certainty, because, you and I both know that motherhood is a bag of uncertainty, right? You just kind of really, it carries on. You never know. And so I believe that the fertility journey is what increases your capacity for the uncertainty that is just a part of pregnancy and motherhood. But how do I help people accept it more, or to make more peace with uncertainty, is I think primarily we have to get an essence of what uncertainty feels like in the body, like letting it actually land, letting yourself actually feel that discomfort is probably, number one. Because if we think that uncertainty needs to feel like bliss or joy, or I should just be able to like not care and I need to be that chill person, it's just not a realistic expectation of yourself. So I think that realizing that the initial taste of uncertainty is actually incredibly uncomfortable within the body. There's a lot of resistance. And the way that our mind and bodies kind of primarily work from a resistance standpoint is we feel the sensations within our body, and then we go right back into the head.
Mm-hmm.
And we go, oh no, but you know what? I have to do this. Or, oh, you know what? It's never going to happen for me. Or, you know what? I need more certainty actually in order to be okay. And so it's this mindfulness and this understanding that we get when we slow down that
Mm-hmm.
actually the discomfort that I'm feeling in my body is part of the shift into actually accepting the uncertainty. And so in this space of allowing this discomfort to settle into your body, I think we really believe a lot of like the law of attraction and like toxic positivity,
Mm-hmm.
like I need to have full belief that it's going to happen in order for it to work. And I don't think we need full belief. In fact, I think that we're allowed to say we don't know, and it can
Right.
still happen. I don't know. It's funny. There are so many. I was just reading. I think it was. I don't know who it was, but one big spiritual guru was like, I don't know anything. And it was just in the full acceptance of that. And that was a really powerful spiritual message that he was sharing with everyone in this talk. Because when we don't believe that we need the answers, and we can kind of train our mind and bodies to feel safe in this truth, it's incredibly relieving and freeing to know that we don't have to control every aspect. I think initially for my clients and a lot of the women I work with, the idea of not needing control is very unsettling. But then
Mm-hmm.
after a couple of months of working together, they're like, oh my God, I don't need control. Like, yes. Oh, this is so much better. So it's allowing this space for this to kind of settle, for this to kind of land inside of your mind and body. And to, I'm a big believer that we can only receive what we're willing to experience inside of our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not willing to experience the uncertainty of the fertility journey, then I think it'll be really difficult to experience the uncertainty of pregnancy and the uncertainty of motherhood. Now, with
Mm-hmm.
that being said, if someone would have told me I wasn't experiencing uncertainty on my fertility journey, I would have punched them in the face, because I was experiencing it. I had been trying to conceive for so long, but I was not experiencing it inside my body.
Right.
I was experiencing uncertainty in my head, and I was trying to make sense of it in my head. I was trying to gain certainty of uncertainty in my head, but I didn't learn the essence of uncertainty and what it actually has to offer us, which is the gift of the present moment. Because when we're not needing to know answers and calculate and plan and be certain, what's left is
Right.
this space of like nothingness. And if nothing's there, then we can be here.
Yeah.
And in a very interesting way, when we are in this space, life kind of yields in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're surrendered. We're not needing to control or shift or change anything outside of us. And so it's weird, right? Because it's this double-sided thing of uncertainty genuinely leads to more certainty, but certainty from a spiritual perspective, not certainty of everything going your way, but certainty from, I know that my life is going to work out. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it's working out. And there's safety and empowerment in that.
So true. It's like when nobody wants to let go, but you have to let go in order to get what you think you're getting from not letting go, really is
exactly
what the the whirlwind of it all is. Something in your book that I thought was really neat was that you have a playlist you created for readers to listen to while they read your book. Can you talk a little bit about what gave you the idea to do that?
I would love to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm big into music. Talk about like coming into your body. I don't know if there's anything that can do that for me more than music can, right? So I wrote the book listening to this playlist, and I cried so many tears when I was listening to the music, and it evoked such emotion within me. And like, that's the point of this book is to feel again, to wake up out of the hallucination of our minds that are just telling us that we're broken and we need fixing and we're wrong we got to hustle to figure out the mystery. And so I think that the playlist that I actually just encourage you to find on Spotify, it again brings you on this mind and body journey. Often we read and we're just reading with our heads and we're like, la da 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 da. The music brings you into your body. And when we're in our body, our nervous systems are feeling much more regulated, and it's increased fertility as a result. So I love it. And it's instrumental, so don't worry, you don't get distracted or anything. And it's really beautiful. It's
awesome.
it's like an embodiment experience. Yes, you have to. And write while you're like, even put the playlist on while you're writing or something, and you'll be like, this is so beautiful.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, you also kind of talk about some common misconceptions about fertility. Can you talk about that with what maybe people are hearing from all different, areas that they might be kind of getting stuck on that might not even be something they need to be focused on?
I mean, I think the biggest misconception, without a doubt, is how we think and believe that our fertility is only a physical issue. For example, there's new research being shown that it's just fascinating. Autoimmunity is a common issue that many people have while they're struggling to conceive, which basically just means the body attacks the body. Like the body is attacking, like they say, like the embryo, right? And so it's more difficult to get pregnant as a result, obviously. But they have actually done some tests that show people who are more inclined to be shameful of themselves have higher rates of autoimmune issues. Because what is shame is it's us attacking ourselves, right?
Interesting.
It's us never feeling good enough, always feeling wrong, not to any fault of our own, but based on our cultural upbringing, right? It's very rare for a woman to feel without, help from therapists or coaches that she's worthy regardless of what she does or regardless of how she feels. This is a very new concept in our day and age. So yeah, they're saying that shame actually has higher rates of autoimmune issues.
Wow.
I know.
So interesting.
And so a lot of people might hear that. It does. A lot of people might hear that. And maybe they have autoimmune issues and they're like, well, I'm just going to, now I feel even more ashamed of myself for being responsible.
I have PCOS, so it's like an autoimmune issue. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I ashamed of myself?
Right, exactly, right. But it's more so, the way, when I learned about the mind and body connection, I could have approached it from a standpoint of feeling ashamed that was I to blame for this? And I talk a lot about that at the beginning of my book. And obviously that's a very sensitive subject, but I actually just saw it as an opportunity for me to like myself in a world that constantly told me not to. And I loved that perspective because it felt incredibly empowering to know that I did have a healthy sense of control over my life, my mind, my body, my spirit, and what I wanted to do in this lifetime. And that's it. I think that these moments are incredible opportunities for us. And, I think it's interesting. I read a concept somewhere when I was struggling to conceive that the dis-ease, which is dis-ease, right? Like some dis-ease in the body, is the cure. And it was just like, that hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was like my fertility journey, which was, quote unquote, my disease, it was my cure in my life. Because it took me out of just doing what everyone else did. It took me out of following what everyone else did. It took me out of like designing this life externally and just ignoring internally what was going on. And it cured every aspect of me, not just my body, but my mind and my relationships and my career. I also have this incredible career of coaching women every week on this very topic. And it was my cure. And I listened. And it wasn't, listening, I don't think is this hustly approach. And I don't think we should ever make the decision to listen from a place of I'm broken and I need to be fixed. I think it's like, wow, what if the universe is actually working in my favor? Einstein says the biggest decision we can make is whether the universe is a hostile place or a friendly place. And if we believe that events are happening to help us, then we approach life far differently than if we believe that people are out to get us or life is here to, you know, make us struggle.
Right. I
And so
totally agree with that.
it's more from this very empowering approach of, okay, I have a healthy sense of control how things are going. I'm not just here to hustle for my worth and finally find that baby that I have so high on the pedestal. You know, a lot of times in the book, I say, take the baby off the pedestal, put yourself up there,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this baby, although it's going to be incredibly magical and beautiful for you, it's not going to be everything. And if it is your everything, that's also kind of toxic as well, right? You
Right.
need an identity beyond fertility, beyond pregnancy, beyond motherhood. You know, I was brought up by a mom who really devoted her everything to us. And I remember just being like, Mom, go do something for yourself.
Yeah. Come on, get out
Like,
here.
go out with your friends, like, go enjoy yourself. And every time she did, I loved it because
Yeah.
I got a really happy mom in return. So to learn that is what a
Hard.
gift.
Yeah.
It can be, but it gets easier.
Yeah, my husband and I, it's so funny. We just literally had this conversation yesterday because we were talking about like hobbies or whatever. And I said, you know, so many people say marriage after babies is the hardest thing ever. And it is hard, of course. But I said, I think the hardest thing is keeping your identity in some form
Mm-hmm.
because you lose it
Absolutely.
completely. And we really do like put that as a forefront for us and make that important that we're doing. Even the podcast is like a hobby for
Yes.
me to do.
Yes.
And he's so supportive of that, me like blocking time off for that and all of that. But I find that is the hardest part of motherhood is keeping that part of yourself rather than just becoming mom, wife, whatever you do as work
Yeah.
person, like
Yeah.
that person you were before kids, which is I think what so many women miss about their old life because they just completely got rid of that person that was three
Exactly.
kids, you know?
Exactly. And so I learned that on my fertility journey.
Hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
learned I cannot make this child my identity because one
Hmm.
thing, this child is going to do their own thing. And if they're doing their own thing and it's not in alignment with what I want, I have to learn to be okay with that.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why it's important for us to moms to have our own identity beyond that is because it will only make it easier for us to give them more freedom to be who they came to be in this
Hmm.
lifetime,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
also for us to be happier.
Yes, I
Right?
agree. Happier
Mm-hmm.
mom when you do things for yourself because you deserve
Exactly.
it. Everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
So you have given us so much information on all realms of just not only fertility, but really loving yourself. And I think that everyone out there will highly benefit from your book, and it's such a great tool for women to use. And again, it's not just I feel as though about fertility; anyone can kind of benefit from it, which is really great. Do you have any last words before we kind of wrap it up?
Oh, let me think. What am I, or let me feel what I want to share with women, just struggling maybe to see themselves, to know themselves, to trust themselves on whatever journey they're on, whether it being fertility or motherhood. And I think that's one kind of interesting point to realize is that we all have our hard with each
Mhm.
phase of life. And to think that someone else is just going through their shit and like is just never struggles just isn't the case. I mean, we are all struggling. And that's the interesting thing of shame is shame makes you feel like you're alone, but everyone has shame,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know? And so maybe that's it's realizing that even though maybe someone listening is struggling to conceive, there's also someone listening who has three babies, and you guys are all feeling very similar emotions, which is how do I find myself? How do I give life to myself? How do I listen to what I need? And so, wherever you're at and whatever you're going through and whatever you're experiencing today, I just want you to know you're not the only one, that everyone has their hard. And like I said, just meet yourself where you're at and offer yourself grace because even if you're feeling at a low, low, low point, but you meet yourself where you're at, it's the same uh, gift you can give to yourself and the same kind of catapult into another transition of your life that you can offer yourself if you were to meet yourself in a really extreme, positive, happy state. Like it's like it doesn't matter where you're at, as long as you can allow yourself to be where you are. Change is inevitable,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? And so it's important to know that.
That is great advice to leave everyone with, and so true. Well, thank you so much. That's going to bring us to an end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. Today, we've had the privilege of diving deep into the power of the mind body connection with the incredible Spencer. From her personal journey to becoming a beacon of hope for countless women navigating their own paths to motherhood, Spencer has shared invaluable insights and strategies for embracing the fertility journey with grace and resilience. Remember, fertility is not just about having a baby, a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. As Spencer beautifully puts in her book, Fertile Grounds, it's about unbecoming who you think you should be and embracing the full spectrum of your emotions. If you found today's episode inspiring, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends who might benefit from Spencer's wisdom. You can connect with me on Instagram at @therunningwinemom_. And Spencer, where can our listeners find more about you and your work?
At Spencer Brassard. So SPENSERBRASSARD. And you can find me on Instagram.
Perfect.
And also search Fertile Ground on Amazon and buy the book.
I will link all of that in. And yes, that's amazing. So thanks so much for joining us today, Spencer. Your dedication to supporting women on their fertility journeys is just amazing. And your message of self-trust, compassion, and embracing the unknown is truly empowering. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. And to the listeners, remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.